Swadee Krap and good afternoon once again. Today is Monday, the 28th of February, 2022. It's the beginning of the week, as well as the last day of the month of February as well. Firstly, appreciation to Dr. Apisamai for the Thai language version of the briefing that we have here twice a week now, Monday and Thursdays here at the Center for COVID Situation Administration, or CCSA. So Dr. Apisamai mentioned a couple of important issues. Firstly, of course, our focus on home isolation procedure, as well as the appreciation to all line agencies and sectors of society. In the past cooperation, in the past months and years, in gathering all the resources, in putting together all the resources that are necessary for us to fend off and tackle the COVID pandemic up until today. And finally, towards the end of this briefing, I'll be talking a little bit about the evacuation of Thai nationals from Ukraine vis-a-vis the entry procedures as well into the country. But first off, the general situation, global situation, new infection is on a downward trend with the highest number of infections in the past week in Germany, Russia, South Korea, Brazil, and Turkey, while the fatality rate remains steady. As for Thailand, specifically for Thailand here for us all here, the new infections are still on the rise in general, thus resulting in the rise of number of severe cases and death toll as well, particularly for those above 50 years old and those or those with underlying chronic diseases. That is why the CCSA here urges everyone to practice universal prevention as well as to get their booster dose, which will help lessen the severity of the infection. Recap on the test and go scheme that we have usually. Allow me to recap the updated regulations from the CCSA general meeting last week, which will actually be effective from tomorrow, the 1st of March 2022. So we'll have a big chart coming up for you, perhaps full screen there on the full screen. So travelers entering by land, air, and sea through the test and go, according to these new measures, will no longer be required the second RT-PCR test and hotel stay on the 5th day. The second RT-PCR test will be changed to a self-ATK, and travelers can report the test result via the Mochana application. So please note that travelers must show proof of payment that include day 1 hotel stay, an SHA Extra Plus, or AQ or OQ or AHQ with RT-PCR and the transportation, as well as the ATK test kit. The minimum health insurance coverage has also been revised from $50,000 US to no less than $20,000 US. We have some outline up there on screen for you. Further review of these updates and measures will be made next time in the month of April 2022. As mentioned, this will be effective tomorrow, pending some internal procedures. And also, as you can see on the slide coming up, after the first RT-PCR test at the hotel, if the result is negative, you are free to travel as planned. And on day 5, you will take the ATK test and report the result on Mochana application. Those who want to be eligible for this new update measures can apply for the Thailand Pass from the 1st of March, and these measures will be effective then. Update on the arrival of travelers. We'll turn to the usual updates of this entry into Thailand. So around the entire month of February, minus today, so that's the 1st to the 27th of February 2022. We have a total, as you see on screen, 193,033 travelers, incoming travelers entering Thailand. And of this number, 128,116 continue to enter via the test and go or quarantine exemption scheme. We have 56,218 entering via the sandbox scheme and 8,699 travelers entering with quarantine or alternative quarantine, meaning they were unvaccinated or not fully vaccinated incoming travelers. And the majority of international travelers in the past month of February have come from these top 10 countries you see on screen: Russia, Germany, UK, France, Singapore, and the rest. Yes, so I'll move on to the general situation in Thailand. For all of you viewing us from around the world on social media and also on television and social media in Thailand as well. We're also on radio as well. So, new confirmed case we recorded for today, 22,311, of which almost the entirety, almost 100%, are from the Omicron variant. We have new recoveries standing at 17,470 cases. We have 42 fatalities, unfortunately, mostly the elderly and those with underlying chronic diseases. The fatality rate now stands at 0.80% in Thailand. In the overall picture, the new infections and clusters still arise from gatherings in restaurants, in markets, schools, factories, and from religious ceremonies across the country. I'll move on to the update about the provinces, number of provinces, number of cases in each province. Of course, green means less cases, less new cases than the previous day. And in red means more new cases than the previous day. Nice to see that only 2 provinces or city is marked in red for today, meaning in Bangkok and Nonthaburi, which is of course in the vicinity of Bangkok. So these 2 cities, the city and the province, have more cases than the previous day, while the others are in green, fortunately. So that speaks a lot about the spread, the dimension of spread of the pandemic across the country. The vaccination progress. Also, yesterday we administered over 340 doses of vaccines. So the accumulated now stands at over 123 million doses. As we mentioned quite often, not people taking the shots, but the doses themselves. Now we have over 77% of the population, or 53.5 million people, already received their first dose. As for the second dose, 71.5% with their second dose complete. We have 29.2% of the population receiving their third dose or booster dose already. That accounts for over 20.3 million people. So of course, the world today is watching a lot of current events right now. One of the most important today, of course, is the situation in Ukraine. So I just want to note that the Thai nationals in Ukraine are being taken care of very closely by the Royal Thai Embassy in Warsaw, and you have some pictures on screen there of that assistance. So around 99 Thai nationals are being evacuated from the cities of Lviv and Odessa into Warsaw and Bucharest for their onward evacuation flight back to Thailand from Ukraine. Now I mentioned this because today, and you have some images up there of our Thai community being coordinated and taken care of by the embassy there. I mentioned this because this morning at the CCSA meeting, a proposal was made to facilitate the entry procedure of these Thai nationals. There are around 250 Thai nationals. So the first batch will be coming tomorrow by flight to Thailand. And the proposal to the CCSA was taken in to facilitate the entry procedures of these nationals, and which will be approved in due course. And to facilitate them, there might be an exemption of the testing prior to arrival. But then, of course, when they arrive, the procedures are set there for safety in terms of checking of the ATK and the RT-PCR, and as well as all the other entry procedures. So that being said, just to mention that due to the confirmed cases, which are continuing to rise in Thailand, we have to stress once again to request everyone to take extra precaution extra care by following the universal prevention measures, masking up and visiting or staying in well ventilated areas. And of course, if you recall, VUCA, V-U-C-A, V, vaccine, U, universal prevention, C, COVID-free setting in restaurants, wherever you go, for entrepreneurs as well, and ATK is for ATK test. ATK test regularly. Of course, in many offices in Thailand now, even restaurants, staff, and workers, and everybody in every sector actually, their offices require the use of ATK at least on a weekly basis, and in some schools it's actually twice a week as well, as a requirement for the beginning of the week in terms of school, or beginning of the office work week, which is very good. So please stay adamant, please stay strong, please continue to be very, very cautious, continue to take the ATK test regularly. Of course, these days there are two types that's available in Thailand. The one that, of course, you have to get your samples from the nostrils, and the second one is through the saliva test, which is quite convenient. So with that note, I thank you for your attention. Please continue to be vigilant. Please continue to take care of each other, and we'll see you again on Thursday. สวัสดีครับ